Heeters as characters are either hated, praised, or a mix of the two in Dragon Ball Super. Personally, I have mixed feelings on them as well, but overall I appreciate the characters and the thought put into them. Today I'll be reviewing the Heeter crew and telling you exactly how I feel about these controversial characters. When the Heeters are first introduced, their leader Elec is center stage after hiring Granola to grab a very useful asset, OG-73, from the Moro arc. Elec is a character who prides himself in his use of information and resources, which is relatively new to the series. Frieza had this going on as well as a few others, but they aren't near as vocal about their priorities when it comes to that method of maintaining power. He has so much confidence in his ways, he disregards using an army like Frieza as unnecessary, claiming money and information are the real key to success. Elec blatantly states throughout his run in Dragon Ball Super that whoever has the most intel controls the universe, which in a lot of ways is true. You can't be manipulated or used if you know the truth about everything, and as a result, you can be the one in control. I love that this arc calls attention to that. It's an astute observation that has real life value. Elec calls attention to 73's usefulness as a source of intel, and then he goes on to state something very interesting, that the state of things in the universe is shifting. This is a direct reference to Frieza, which is important to keep in mind for later on in the arc. Now at this point in the story, the character Granola, which we are introduced to as sort of the secondary protagonist of this story, has vengeance sprout up within him as a result of hearing that Frieza has been resurrected and is stronger than ever. This is very reminiscent of whenever Goku dealt with the same thing in the King Piccolo arc. This is purposely done, and I'll discuss that in more detail later on in the video. When Granola makes his need for revenge clear, Elec's intelligence is shown firsthand. One thing I like about Elec is that revenge really isn't his thing. However, his positive character traits are evened out by his brother Gas, who is introduced here in the story. Gas is introduced to us as a force of nature. Elec and the Heeters are suggested to be more advanced life forms than the likes of Granola and Goku. The Heeters as a race are pretty unique in the sense that that's the first time they've highlighted evolution and biology as a benefit for a long time, but specifically in Super in direct reference to the villain of a specific arc. Granola gets a little bit puffy with Elec, so Gas decides to knock Granola down a peg. Gas easily takes down Granola, showing us just how powerful and dominant he is in comparison to Granola, who honestly doesn't stand a chance. Right off the bat, I remember I wasn't crazy about Gas's design when it first appeared in comparison to the rest of the Heeters, but it grew on me as the arc progressed. Something I find interesting about Elec is his influence over Granola. Had Granola listened to Elec, he would have been no better off than the Heeters later on in the story, but the mere suggestion that Granola can have his revenge by Elec reinforces this idea of revenge in Granola's mind, which serves Elec. Elec is very good at playing people. After Granola leaves, we are introduced to his sidekick, Oatmeal, for the first time. Oatmeal serves as the voice of reason in this arc, which pays off narratively very well later on. Despite that, his other influences have already done too much damage. Elec makes his intentions clear to his siblings. He plans on leading Granola into a trap through his need to get revenge. This is one of the most important plot points in the arc that's not discussed enough because it has a huge payoff later. Elec fears that Granola can surpass Gas, and he can't allow that to happen. Gas doesn't take it personally, but is quick to tell his brother he can never surpass him. Gas is very confident that Granola does not have the potential to surpass him, or maybe it's just he doesn't want to disappoint his brother yet again. Elec sees Gas's ego, and much like any person with a large ego, Gas is very easy to manipulate. Feeding his ego is all that's necessary to keep him under your thumb. So Elec's plan to have Frieza ice Granola is made clear, and I love the nameplay they use here. They refer to Granola reacting to Frieza as lighting a fire beneath him, and they also use the word ice in reference to taking out Frieza. So yeah, there's some interesting wordplay in this arc that I appreciate. Elec reveals why 73 is specifically such an asset, and that's because he can lead them to Zuno, the ultimate intel broker. This is essentially ultimate power to Elec. When Granola returns home, it's revealed to us that the current residents of the planet Cereal are only there due to the Cerealians being wiped out 40 years ago. The current residents lived there are a result of the Heeters, laying claim to the planet and selling it for profit much like Frieza. They rebuilt the planet from scratch and resold it, giving illumination to their name, the Heeters, as a parallel to Frieza if it wasn't already obvious. So essentially they are real estate agents. The Shurgarians were a drifting race of aliens in need of a home, and thanks to Elec, are now the primary inhabitants of the planet. So now Granola lives in the mountains with his grandfather Manito, which I just did a video about, so don't forget to check that out. Back at the Heeters hideout, all the info he needs from 73 is revealed, including the coordinates to Zuno's domain. One thing I love about the Heeters' home is that it reminds me a lot of Rita Repulsa's domain or Bandora's palace from Zeo Ranger. As is explained to us that the Galactic Patrol has Zuno under their jurisdiction, I can't help but appreciate the vibe of the arc so far. It reminds me a lot of the 80s/90s film aesthetics from early Dragon Ball. The designs, the dynamics, the characters, and the narrative themes all feel very unique, but yet comfortable within Dragon Ball. So Elec learned about the Dragon Balls after learning they were used to free every prisoner from the Galactic Patrol prison. I really like how this sets up Elec's greed for the Dragon Balls and his lust for them, which creates another parallel between he and Frieza. So Elec learns the truth about the Dragon Balls and what they are capable of, although he is left under the impression that they are more powerful than they really are in reality. As it's stated by his assistant, they can grant any wish, which we know is only true of the Super Dragon Balls. Any arc where the villains are chasing the Dragon Balls is pretty easy to predict if you know how they work, which isn't necessarily common knowledge in the Dragon Ball fandom. But if you're curious about that, you can check out this video I did with Geekdom 101 about the truth behind the function of the Dragon Balls. Normally, when the villains use the Dragon Balls, they receive some form of karmic justice. But this arc takes that and flips it on its head in a lot of ways to reveal more about the Dragon Balls to modern fans. There are so many intricate pieces put into place in this arc to make it work. It's actually very well thought out. It's not easy to put so many revelations in place for a character to have, specifically in reference to Elec, or any of the characters for that matter, Goku, Vegeta, Granola. Manito's name is dropped to the Heeters, so they choose to use him as a thread to follow their way to the Dragon Balls. A few days later, a hot-headed Granola charges straight in to confront the Heeters in a more aggressive manner than usual. Elec, who appears intoxicated, is curious as to why Granola has charged in with such force. When Granola shows up, Elec has predicted that he was there to get his revenge and find out where Frieza is. He knows Granola is a hothead, but what he didn't know is that Granola now has the power to back up his grudge thanks to the Dragon Balls. He claims he's the most powerful in the universe, and of course Elec and his crew are skeptic, but why wouldn't they be? They basically think he's lost his mind. What Oil says here is actually very ironic because it's basically what happens to Gas later on in the story. Elec seems to brush Granola off on purpose. Bluffing is the vibe I get here. It's almost as if he knows Granola is telling the truth, but he's handling it in a way that keeps him out of harm's way, without giving up on the ground that he has as a superior to Granola, and he pulls it off. He sends in Oil first to, escort Granola from the premises, but after a quick preview of his abilities, Elec's suspicions are confirmed, and Elec sends Oil back in anyway, knowing Granola is much, much stronger. Oil is a standard strongman, lifting, throwing things, slow movements. Maki, however, has a much more unique style. She used an attack very reminiscent of Jubilee from X-Men. I have a feeling Toyotaro really likes X-Men because Belmod, a Toyotaro favorite, also had a move very similar to Gambit from X-Men. She sort of attacks with these energy claw-like things. Jubilee normally threw projectiles, but there was a few instances where she used her abilities in close combat, and it's very reminiscent to what we're seeing here. Elec intelligently holds Gas back after realizing that Granola isn't just full of hot air, a pun on Gas's name, which is hilarious. Elec tricks Granola into opening his mouth about the Dragon Balls. Granola's mouth is a detriment in this story, and he will definitely live to regret it, and you'll see more about what I mean by that later. After Elec realizes that Granola is in fact the strongest in the universe thanks to the Dragon Balls on Planet Cereal, he tells Granola he will find Frieza for him, but it will take time. Elec's criminal ways serve the Dragon Ball very well. It allows the story to flow very naturally and use its tropes to build a good story that fits the pre-existing narrative themes of the series. And the way he plays people around him is genuinely impressive, which is why I'm happy he's at least appreciated as a character from the fans' perspective over the rest of the Heeters. Elec is definitely a character who has earned some appreciation. Granola informs Elec he had to trade 150 years of his life for the power he attained via the Dragon Balls. It gives him a lot more to think about because Elec had previously thought that the Dragon Balls basically had no limits, so when he hears this, it gives him more time to really hatch a plan. After Oil asks Elec what he's going to do, Maki comments that maybe they should just let Granola ice Frieza. But Elec's paranoia gets the best of him as he assumes that Granola has the same goals as the Heeters. Elec also realizes that Frieza's army being destroyed means relinquishing control of the territories that they dominate, which robs him of the business opportunities that offers. At this point, it's revealed that the Heeters are responsible for bringing Frieza and the Saiyans to Planet Cereal all those years ago for a big payday. Elec decides that Frieza is a more important ally than Granola and plots to use the Saiyans again like he did all those years ago in order to goad Granola into a trap. This is a great way to draw a parallel between Elec's manipulation tactics in combination with Frieza and King Cold. You'll notice Elec's intelligence is great, much like Frieza, but his antics cause problems that are ultimately unbecoming of him. The arc makes a genuine effort to highlight this as a trait of Elec, so you can associate him with Frieza and King Cold. But unlike Frieza, Elec is weak physically. As far as we know, especially at this point in the story, he's weak physically, so he doesn't use his own might to solve his issues, which is something that Kami specifies to Goku as a necessity for something that you have to do in order to basically pass the test of the Dragon Balls and not suffer as a result of using them. Elec decides to use the Saiyans based on his perception of their power alone. The interesting thing is that is not the only reason that Goku specifically is so successful all the time, and that speaks to just how little Elec knows about the forces that he's dealing with. Goku is successful due to his nature. This arc expands on that heavily for the purpose of showing us just how foolish Elec is in this case, for assuming he knows what he's dealing with. But Elec is right about one thing. Information is key. Too bad he doesn't understand the full scope of the situation. Elec tells Maki and Oil before they head to Earth that in order to execute their plan, they must pay a visit to Zuno for intel. Not just on the Saiyans, but everything they need, any unspecified information at this point in the story that they need in order to pull off the job. Maki and Oil want to know if they can ask about where to buy some of the tastiest grub rolls, and Elec tells them, quote, "Go nuts." I love the way the Heeters communicate via modern lingo and slang. It's refreshing. Goku does the same thing, but this is handled from a criminal aesthetic. After Maki and Oil leave, Gas wants to know how exactly Elec plans on manipulating the Saiyans. He tells Gas Zuno is going to give them their weakness and that he probably has enough capital to exploit said weakness. Gas wonders if this is all necessary to take down Granola, to which Elec replies that if he is in fact the strongest in the universe, it very well may be necessary. Elec can tell Gas has regrets in not being able to show his superiority to Granola, but he assures him his time will come. The dynamic between Elec and Gas reminds me of a lot of Sidious and Anakin from Star Wars. Gas is a talented and egotistical warrior, and Elec feeds his ego in order to get what he wants. This is a common trope, but the way it's done here is very reminiscent of that dynamic between Sidious and Darth Vader specifically. Elec assures Gas to relax, that their time as a whole is coming, and that if the plan works out, it's in everyone's best interest. When Maki makes her way to Zuno, she's in full-on regret mode when she finds out that she has to give Zuno a kiss for their questions. She even tries to pass it off on Oil, but Zuno, of course, isn't interested. Zuno and I apparently have similar taste in women because he likes feisty girls, and as a result, Maki earns 10 wishes from Zuno. We get this funny little nod at the changing of times from classic Dragon Ball. You can't just be exchanging kisses for info in the modern day, guys. Come on. So what is Goku and Vegeta's weakness? Their wives. Maki shows up and uses Chi-Chi's old-fashioned values to her advantage to incentivize her to fetch Goku and Vegeta. Bulma and Chi-Chi reach the boys through Whis and inform them that apparently a couple of aliens are there in need of assistance against a villain, which piques Goku and Vegeta's interest. Chi-Chi makes her presence and her intent for Goku clear. They are getting paid, so he better come home right away. After Bulma informs them that this villain is supposed to be the strongest in the universe, the deal is sealed. They have them hook, line, and sinker. The way Maki plays damsel in distress here reminds me a lot of Frieza when he tricked Broly. In fact, a lot of the faces she makes remind me of Frieza, but maybe it's just that sinister smile and that eyeliner. Maki and Oil's next target is the Dragon Radar. I love the callback to DBS Broly here, Here we find out the Dragon Balls have been used lately, so as a result, they aren't showing up on the radar, which is very interesting. Chi-Chi notices Maki and Oil and makes it a point to tell them that they better not try and pay them off with that fancy space money. That stuff is useless on Earth. Maki informs her they intend to pay her with Sky Gold, a callback to Jocko, the Galactic Patrolman. Sky Gold was used to power his ship, and they also make a callback to this in the Moral arc whenever Miras goes to stop a hijacking of Sky Gold. I love how they essentially make Chi-Chi the most money-hungry character in the series. When they offer to pay her weight in Sky Gold, she replies she plans on going to gain some weight. One thing that's overlooked here is despite the fact that they are being hired to save a planet from a villain, Goku and Vegeta are just concerned with fighting the universe's strongest. It's funny how that works. And then we get this cute scene where Bulma and Chi-Chi show concern for their husbands, but with that, Maki and Oil have successfully tricked Goku and Vegeta. But let's be honest, all they had to do was utter the words strongest in the universe and they would have had them running to come help. The irony, right? Maki is a great liar and manipulator like Elec. She uses food against Goku and Vegeta's need for like a royal treatment to entice them to look past the obvious weird stuff that's going on here. Maki informs Granola that apparently their crew let it slip that Granola was coming after Frieza and is sending some assassins to take him out. Honestly, Maki does most of the work pitting Goku and Vegeta against Granola, and it's actually pretty impressive. Maki seems to really enjoy what she does. She can't wait to tell Granola that the assassins are also Saiyans, which really lights a fire under Granola as they were responsible for the destruction of his people along with Frieza. The Saiyans were much more hands-on about that whole thing. They were the ones actually on the planet destroying it, so Granola has a huge grudge against them as well. When the Heeters show up with the boys to Planet Cereal, they send them straight into Granola's crosshairs. Oil informs Maki he will give them the play-by-play, so by now it's been established how well the Heeters do what they do. They are very good as a small team at making huge, universe-altering moves. Back on one of the Heater ships, we see Elec and Gas look down on the planet, and it's here we find out that Gas actually has a bad history with Planet Cereal. Granola impresses Elec later on after the fight progresses with his performance against Goku and Vegeta. He assumed Granola would lose quickly, but he's exceeded his expectations. This is Elec gauging the situation to make the best possible decision. So basically he sees that Granola is better than he thought, so he's trying to figure out what the best move is here. He eventually comes to the conclusion that the plans are to basically have all three of them wipe each other out, while he does something in the background to assure victory for all of them. So we find out that years and years ago, Bardock, who was on a military operation against the Cerealians organized by Frieza and the Heeters, has a sudden change of heart after associating Granola and his mother Muesli with his own family. And he decides to try and help them survive this military skirmish. It's actually pretty poetic and cool because he's on the opposite side, to be honest. On his way to escort Granola, Muesli and Manito, the Namekian, the last surviving Namekian on Planet Cereal, he tries to get them all to safety. He stumbles upon the Heeters. Now, Bardock explains to Manito that the Heeters' role is basically the same as Frieza's in a sense, but they're more like brokers. And Manito scoffs at the idea that they would sell off planets like this and be so inconsiderate of the people who live on them. And then Bardock makes this really funny face because like he has been directly involved in that business for so long. So like he is responsible for a lot of these people falling victim to this process. Bardock witnesses and overhears Elec's ambitions and disrespect towards the Frieza Force. He insults them as nothing more than brutes who don't understand the true value of the planets that they conquer. It's important to keep in mind that Bardock is wearing his scatter the whole time and that Frieza is capable of overhearing this conversation. Gas's ambitions are also revealed as well. He wants him and his family to eventually rule over the Frieza Force, but with intel, not necessarily might. Now Gas himself, he definitely takes his power seriously, and he is the enforcer of the Heater Force, but he sees the necessity of intelligence within the Heater crew. When Bardock hears Elec's plans, he's shocked. Granola wakes up from his nap where he passes out earlier from seeing Bardock, and he opens his mouth just like he did before when he was speaking to Elec and causes problems for everyone. to Granola's mouth. The Heeters discover them, and despite Bardock's efforts to protect them, this move from Granola cost him his mother's life. Due to the fact Bardock associated Weasley with Guinea, he rages out and attacks the Heeters out of instinct. And you'll notice as the story progresses, all of the moves Bardock makes that are uncharacteristic are made out of instinct. As a result, after they retreat, Alec sends Gas to kill them before Frieza shows up. This mess isn't something that causes problems for them against Frieza. Little did he know, Frieza has already heard everything via the Scouter. So after the flashback, it's revealed, much like how King Cold helped Frieza try to get revenge against Goku, we have a similar dynamic here where Alec is indirectly helping Gas get his revenge. Bardock shattered Gas's ego, much like Goku did to Frieza, and he's basically obsessed. Gas, however, expresses a desire to win with his own power, but his brother doesn't want to leave anything to chance. This is also a very important aspect of this arc in reference to the Dragon Balls. Essentially, Alec's influence to have Gas not use his own power to solve his own issues ends up being a detriment, because that is, again, one of the rules in order to conquer using the Dragon Balls. When the Dragon Balls are gathered, Alec sends Gas and Maki to meet Oil so Gas can wipe out Goku, Vegeta, and Granola. He sees the bloodlust in Gas's eyes, and this is also very important because Gas not being present whenever Alec makes his wish has a huge payoff later on in the arc. They make it a point to show us that had it been up to Gas, again, he would have used his own power, but again, Alec will not leave anything to chance. And so, the Heeters make their way to the battle. Gas, the new strongest in the universe, is revealed. At this point, there has been some form of peace established between Goku, Vegeta, and Granola as a result of learning that Bardock is responsible for saving him, attempting to save Weasley, and also saving Monito. So when Gas shows up officially as the strongest in the universe, he uses this really cool finger laser technique where it's suspended and continuous, and it gets more powerful as he moves it towards Granola, Vegeta, and Goku. As a result, he ends up cutting the ship that Oatmeal was in straight in half. Gas has no mercy on Granola, and he immediately hits him with this brutal attack as his limbs are pierced and he's pinned against what remains of his ship. Here it's revealed that Gas has jealousy due to Alec using Granola for jobs that Gas felt that he could easily handle. Goku tries to jump in and help, but Gas uses a technique similar to Hearts from Super Dragon Ball Heroes to stop him. Here Gas has realized that Goku is in fact the son of Bardock. He wants to know if Bardock is still alive, but Vegeta tells him that only he and Goku remain. Maki has such a mouth, man. Goku wants to know why they want to kill him, and Gas informs them they can't take any chances and that they are a threat to the rule of the Heeters. Granola saves Goku at the last second, proclaiming the title of the strongest is his. But Gas doesn't hesitate to make Granola pay for his words. As the fight progresses and Gas gets the upper hand against Granola, he informs him that he never saw value in his power like Alec, again highlighting the jealousy that he has for Granola. So then we cut to this flashback where Gas explains to Granola that they didn't know that he and Monito had survived for years after they found them on planet Cereal. Alec, thanks to Monito, is informed that Granola has a lust for revenge against Frieza, even as a child, something he never seemed to be able to cure Granola of. And this begs the question though, had Goku never hit his head, would he have had the same lust for revenge? Given the parallels between Grandpa Gohan, Granola, Goku, and Monito, it does make you wonder. Had Goku never been purified by Grandpa Gohan, Roshi, the wilderness, and losing his memories, all of which are a result of the Dragon Balls, which we find out in this arc as well, would he be any different than Granola? Would he be forced to go on this journey in the future that he may in fact fail if he uses the Dragon Balls incorrectly? Anyway, Alec intends to use Granola's lust for revenge in the future, and this is a callback to how Alec has manipulated Granola this entire time and how he continues to manipulate him now. He learns as a child that Granola had this grudge, and he continues to use that throughout his entire childhood up till now to manipulate him in the wrong direction. And that's why, this scene, this flashback with Gas and Granola, I feel is so important, and people kind of overlook how important it is. because it really goes to show how Alec not only manipulates Granola, but Gas as well. He uses these egotistical characters with a need for revenge because they are easily manipulated as a result of that. Goku says something really interesting here. After Minato expresses regret for allowing Granola to work for the Heeters, Goku says something very profound, and that is that they were just trying to survive. Now, if we take that statement in combination with Alec's statement about how the Saiyans mainly work for Frieza due to their barbaric love for battle, we start to have a more clear picture painted in terms of Toriyama's portrayal of the Saiyans, and specifically Bardock. Rather than making them seem evil, he highlights that they are amoral due to the need to survive. This is very, very important because it adds depth to the Saiyans and why they could succeed in short bouts despite their seemingly evil acts. They did it all to survive, and this paints the Saiyans in general, but mainly Bardock, in not a good light nor a bad light, but a moral light, relying on their instinctual need to survive and fight to determine their decision-making processes for the most part. After Goku tries to save Granola, he seems to get some sort of power boost again due to the need to protect, and that's something that happens with Goku quite a few times in this arc. Meanwhile, Alec is chilling in classic King Cold fashion with his glass of wine, complaining debris may fall into his wine as he sets off on some sort of urgent errand that we don't know anything about at this time. Vegeta goes off to tell Granola to use his own power to get his revenge, a reference to half of what you need in order to use the Dragon Balls correctly, and Maki and Oil want to know where he's gone, so they threaten Minato. Granola returns to the battle after being gifted a senzu by Vegeta. He accepts the help of a friend, very reminiscent of Goku's friends, constantly lending him help, and him accepting it. Thanks to this, Granola actually ends up coming out on top in the fight against Gas. Despite that, Alec assures everyone that they haven't seen the extent of Gas's power, removes the charm from his head that suppresses his true nature. Gas's inner nature was released for the first time. I remember it clicked that Broly and Paragus have a very similar relationship to Gas and Alec. Paragus intended to help Broly tame his nature and failed. But in this case, Alec tames Gas, and he does so through causing him to abandon his ego and holding in on his need to serve Alec. But Alec, although in control of his nature, still uses his ego, but in a much more evolved and modern sense. He wants to thrive over others to the point that he's taken his ego too far. He's very intelligent, but he uses his ego in combination with his intelligence. So despite the fact that he's a very highly evolved being, he's still a slave to his ego in the sense that, yes, he's intelligent and he doesn't act like a caveman, but he still makes intelligent moves in order to survive and thrive over other people. So in that sense, despite his intelligence, he still takes his ego too far. So Gas manages to tame his nature after a traumatic reminder of Bardock due to Goku instinctually saving Vegeta from Gas and getting another one of those classic power boosts. Vegeta is so intimidated by Gas's ferocity, he wonders how Bardock could possibly win against such a foe. To which Minato responds, he has no clue. We don't find out for a while how he defeated him. But after Gas gains control of his nature through the need to serve his brother, Granola immediately goes for revenge against Alec and immediately pays for it. This is a direct homage to when Goku was brought near death against King Piccolo due to his urge to avenge Krillin. This is essentially what happens when you fight with selfish intent. The difference between Goku and Granola, however, is that Goku's need for revenge is purified by his survival instincts, his need to survive and protect his friends, which is why Goku doesn't succeed against King Piccolo until he taps into his survival instincts, which allows him to harden his heart and harbor killing intent, but with pure intentions. Granola, in this case, doesn't care about such things. He just wants his revenge. He's not being pushed to the brink. So he's also not a Saiyan like Goku, who can easily tap into this due to their animal-like personality traits. So due to the fact that Granola approaches this situation in such a way, he pays for it very heavily. After Alec seemingly finishes off Granola, Gas makes it a point to state that Granola doesn't matter to him anymore. And you'll notice that Gas's intentions seem pure here due to his devotion to his brother, but Gas's ego is still his weakness, and it's unbecoming of him later. After Vegeta gives Goku the rest of his energy to finish the job, Gas confides in Elec that he's now grateful for the wish, fully embracing it as Elec tells him he would do anything for him. Gas is sent to finish Goku, and we can visibly see the struggle Goku has with his anger, but he is slowly learning to stay calm. He just hasn't had that last push he needs to propel his ability to use Ultra Instinct to a higher degree. When Gas asks Goku if he's experiencing anger over the death of his friend, we later find out that's an echo of what he asked Bardock all those years ago whenever Bardock defeated him. Gas tells Goku as they fight that he doesn't see a hint of fire in his eyes, a reference to what he saw from Bardock, but also the fire in his eyes is whenever he took out Frieza or whenever he took out Piccolo, or the countless other times Goku has had to hone in on his survival instincts in order to kill an opponent. Gas references Bardock's fierce resolve and notices Goku doesn't have it here. That resolve is again the result of being thrown into a state of fight or flight. The fact that Gas is so interested in this is interesting because had he learned this trick, he may have survived the Dragon Balls, as we later have hinted at us in the story. After Goku tells Gas he doesn't remember anything about the Saiyans due to the blow to his head that he received as a child, Gas echoes the word of King Piccolo, telling Goku that yet again he can't defeat someone like Gas, an evil being like him, without hardening his heart, finding the fierce resolve he needs in order to finish the job. In the next few pages, we also get this cool little reference to the battle on Namek when Frieza scoffed at Goku for being a lesser evolved being. I like how this arc takes so many elements from so many Dragon Ball stories to create such an interesting dynamic between Gas and Goku. Gas nearly ends Goku, but his ego won't allow him to. He wants to defeat Goku with his resolve intact like his father. So essentially his goal is to make up for his loss against Bardock. So then he notices Manito healing Granola and he begins to try and rectify that situation. But Goku realizes that Granola is still alive and sees this, and of course that creates a huge amount of motivation for him to protect them. And the panel where Granola is being healed is very reminiscent of Goku lying half dead from the King Piccolo arc. And again, that's due to how similar their situations are. Granola is essentially going through what Goku went through in that arc, in this arc. So now that Goku knows Granola is alive and his motivation to protect him is greater than ever, he jumps in and he grabs Gas and he instant transmissions them away. This leads into one of my favorite scenes in the arc where Goku is strategically taking advantage of his use of instant transmission over Gas to drag him through hilarious obstacles. Eventually, Goku brings Gas to the Galactic Patrol prison, where we get this pun on Goku and Gas trying to piss each other off. And a revealing fact about Gas: it's revealed his place amongst the universe is such a high priority to him because he's looked down amongst the universe's criminals, telling us, the reader, that his need to rule over the Frieza Force is to cure his own insecurities. So essentially, Gas pissed himself when he was a kid, and these criminals have never let him live it down. After this, it's revealed to us how specifically Gas is able to tame his nature, and that is due to his devotion to Elec. The ironic thing is, again, this serves as a means of curing his insecurities. Now, this is interesting because Gas seems to lose control of his nature due to said insecurities, due to his ego. The mechanics of Gas's power are based in like deep psychological themes. Anytime his ego is threatened and his insecurities are revealed, he loses control of his nature. But Elec helps him tame that through his desire to help Elec and the Heeters take over the universe. Goku learns of Gas's true devotion to Elec. He tells him he should watch out for his brother. He may not have his best intentions at heart. And what's funny about that is if he had listened to Goku, he again may have actually survived the Dragon Balls because he wouldn't need him in order to tame his ego. He could do it himself through the principles of martial arts, just like Goku, which we get a call back to again later on whenever Frieza shows up, because that's essentially what Frieza is practicing. He's practiced taming his ego through the same principles that Goku learned on Earth. So, and that's the reason that Frieza has come full circles, because Goku's principles that he learned on Earth have come full circle and affected Frieza. So eventually Goku tricks Gas and leaves him stranded on Whis' planet. Whis tells Gas how to get to Goku, and Gas speeds angrily towards Planet Cereal. But as this happens, it's revealed to us that the Oracle Fish does not recognize Gas as the strongest in the universe, which I remember was a huge reveal whenever that first happened. It caused a lot of questions in people's minds. Goku, Granola, and Vegeta make it back to Manito's place, and the lessons they all learn here are intricate to the entirety of Dragon Ball. So essentially, they get to listen to this recording on Bardock's scouter. So we have this flashback happen where we get to see all the events between Bardock and Gas, how their battle unfolded, and essentially what happens here is as Bardock fights, he starts to lose himself to his survival instincts. And despite using the Dragon Balls, which test you for a miracle as stated by Kami, and Bardock's selfish intent to finish this fight with Gas no matter what, due to Bardock's amoral intentions by tapping into his need to survive, he basically gets to leave Planet Cereal alive due to that. That doesn't mean the decisions he made due to his selfish intent will not come back to haunt him later, because the Heeters had a direct role in Frieza knowing, what happened that day to cause Frieza to be more paranoid about the Saiyans. So he did pay for being selfish. It just he didn't pay for it until way later on. The amoral stance that he took that day allowed him to survive that day, but he paid for it later on. This lesson is not just for Goku or Vegeta. A lot of people think that it is, but it's also for Gas and Granola as well. Essentially, had they all been more like Goku, they all could have survived the Dragon Balls. And by the end of the story, almost all of them learned that lesson, but not all of them. Bardock acknowledges that he isn't giving into his rage or trying to atone for his sins, which is an acknowledge at Goku and Vegeta's issues. He's simply tapping into his need to survive, and this acknowledges the issues that Goku and Vegeta have had that can cause them to pay for their decisions. It offers a remedy to this that Goku has been unknowingly taking advantage of throughout the entire series. A lot of Bardock's fight with Gas here is very reminiscent of Goku's fight with King Piccolo, and I really appreciate that. I really like that Gas is like a mixture of like a bunch of different villains from the past. Broly, Piccolo, Frieza, and the way they kind of hide it beneath the surface is also great, because not many people catch on to this. Not many people catch on to the fact that they're using all these narrative themes from the past in such a cohesive, coherent, and important way to portray an overall idea and narrative that overarches amongst all of the Dragon Ball series. This is a perpetual point that they try to reassure to you throughout the entire series. And this arc sort of is more upfront about it than the rest, but also a lot of the references and stuff that they make to the past are sort of below the surface unless you really know your stuff. So this arc is very intricate in that way. There's a lot of very intricate, subtle references that if you can put all the pieces together, you get this coherent message where it's oh, okay, and it explains so much about the arc. So for example, Goku's issue whenever he was in Ultra Instinct against Moro is that he wasn't aggressive enough. Now, this is a reference to what Goku learned on Earth. Goku learned to tame his ego and to, sort of back off from murdering every bad guy that he came into contact with due to the principles of Budo and things that he learned on Earth. So the actual Ultra Instinct in a lot of ways is a reference to Earth. It's a reference to what Goku learned on Earth. But this whole survival instinct thing that Bardock has going on is, again, a direct reference to Goku's Saiyan heritage and their ideology. And Goku, as a result of this, successfully combines his principles as a martial artist, which he learned on Earth, with the principles that he just adopted from the idea of Saiyan Pride and Bardock to create this ultimate offensive fighting style, implementing his survival instincts into his Ultra Instinct, allowing him to go on the offensive with pure intentions and defeat Gas. Now, there's a book called the Tao of Kung Fu by Bruce Lee. And if you read that book, it actually references this whole idea of balance between offensive and defensive strategies, rough and calm, mindsets. Essentially, Bruce Lee taught that there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance between offensive and defensive. And the original Ultra Instinct is all calm, peace, tranquility. There is no balance there. Okay, so essentially the idea here is that Bardock represents Goku's Saiyan nature to the degree that he can implement the ideas of Saiyan pride into Ultra Instinct to allow him to do what he's done throughout all of the past episodes of Dragon Ball Z, Dragon Ball, where he's had to kill an opponent and tap into his survival instincts in order to do it without having some sort of evil intent. He has amoral intent due to the fact that he is just trying to survive, and he is taking advantage of that in order to not pay for any of the people that he's killed. That's why whenever Goku dies, he has earned up the highest place in heaven, because he avoids sin in this way, essentially. And Vegeta can implement this into what he does, and he does by the end of this arc. Gas can implement it into what he does. Granola can implement it into what he does. And yes, it's a reference to what Bruce Lee teaches in martial arts, but it is also a reference to what makes the Monkey King from Journey to the West such a special character. He is a Buddhist by the end of the story, but guess what? He can still kill people and get away with it because he does it with his instincts. He essentially becomes, because his decisions are natural, because he's making them from a natural place, he doesn't have to pay for them. He essentially becomes one with the universe in a sense, and as a result, he serves as just karmic justice for the people that he destroys. And this, all of this is playing on that idea. Okay, it's playing on how Sun Wukong could become a Buddha, the victorious fighting Buddha, and still get away with killing all these demons in order to protect Tripitaka. And, this is something that Toriyama has been playing on in Dragon Ball all the way back since the OG, and he continues to play on to this day, right? There has to be a balance between your ego and your instincts, and that's essentially what's happening here. That's why you'll notice, Goku is getting hit, allowing his emotions to take over, his survival instinct to take over. Much like whenever Vegeta activated Ultra Ego, he's allowing his survival instincts to take over. Now, I don't know how much you know about your survival instincts, but all of your emotions, anger, sadness, happiness, everything is based in your survival instincts. When you're happy, that's reassurance that you're in a good environment. When you're sad, that means you need to move to a new environment. Okay? Your emotions, in general, are a part of your survival instincts. And that's the reason Goku can use his emotions in this way to cause his body to automatically react due to the need to survive. And that's what this is. This is all playing on Goku's need to survive and his survival instincts, which again allows him to go on the offensive and be aggressive without having evil or immoral intent. Okay, so this is a sort of a way of hacking the morality system of Dragon Ball. So due to the fact that he does not have any evil intent, he can continue to do his thing without paying for it, and he's not sinning. So this is overall something that the arc tries to teach to you through each individual character. And I'll probably discuss this in greater detail at some point, but I just really wanted to hammer that point home because it's very important to the overall narrative of the Granola arc specifically. It's important to the narrative of Dragon Ball as a whole, but this arc actually really tries to draw attention to that. After Goku defeats Gas, it's revealed to us that Gas can use up his lifespan to surpass his opponent as he's fighting them. So, as he's fighting Goku, it's a race of adaptation, and Gas is symbolically sacrificing his life for his brother. So as Gas attempts to surpass Goku, his power grows out of sync with his body. So Granola shows up to save the day. Elec tries to take advantage of his ability to manipulate others and assumes that Granola still has those same impure intentions that he had at the start of the story, but is ultimately disappointed And after a team effort between Goku, Vegeta, and Granola, all using their survival instincts, all in the name of survival, not revenge, they all managed to finally take down Gas, and Ellic's selfish intent with the Dragon Balls finally becomes his downfall. But that's not the only thing that brings him down. The plan that was revealed to us all the way back at the start of this video backfired as Frieza makes his presence known. Gas can no longer tame his ego after realizing his brother's betrayal, looking down in the river, seeing that he's been betrayed, seeing that he's dying. As a result, he loses control of his nature. His inner egotistical, selfish nature comes to the surface, which is why he grows big, and that costs him his life. The one thing that was keeping him at bay up until that point, he abandons, and as a result, due to his lust for revenge and his lust for power, his selfish intentions, Gas is destroyed. Ellic who is revealed to be sloppy with his intel in comparison to what we thought before, and too weak to solve his own problems with his own power, is also bested by Frieza. This is interesting because, again, the thing about it is that Frieza is symbolically destroying the character traits he used to have that were a detriment to him, okay? So his plans, he no longer loses himself to, his need for revenge. He's much more savvy about how he uses, his ability to plan things, and also he uses his own power to solve his own problems, which is very interesting because that means that Frieza now serves all the criteria to correctly use the Dragon Balls as long as he can manage to tame his selfish intent like Goku on an instinctual level. I think that would be a challenge for Frieza, but it is interesting that they are showing that Goku has had such an effect on Frieza that Frieza has come full circle, and he no longer, has plans for revenge immediately. He's officially come full circle. He pulls a Goku on Goku and Vegeta. He knocks Goku and Vegeta out. He drops out of his form and then dips like Goku tried to do to him on Namek. And this is very interesting, again, because Granola, in a lot of ways, is a representation of the issues that Vegeta had to surpass in order to, further his use of Ultra Ego and hone his instincts. And the Heeters sort of serve as the same thing for Frieza. They are obstacles that they have to surpass and destroy from the past in order to grow as people. And this is a direct reference to the Monkey King facing the macaque. This is the same thing. So in Journey to the West, the Monkey King has to face a character who is a representation of all of his detriments, all of his negative character traits. And whenever he defeats this character, he comes out of it a better person. So they use this a lot in Dragon Ball. But for Goku, it's strange. The way they do it with Goku is already pure. So every time he fights a villain, that villain has a bunch of the character traits of the Monkey King. Okay, so it's almost like he's fighting like himself. It's like he's fighting characters who have the character traits of the character that he was based on, right? It's very, very interesting. But that's essentially what Toyotaro and Toriyama decided to do with the Heeters. So this entire arc has been character development for Frieza without actually showing us the character development. They illustrate Ellic and Gas's negative character traits as Frieza's negative character traits, and then they show Frieza conquer those character traits at the last second, which is really cool. And, the Heeters on the surface seem jarring for Dragon Ball, but when you consider how well they serve the overall narrative purpose for the Dragon Balls, Granola as well, they are very unique. They are a very unique take on Dragon Ball villains, and I appreciate them as characters for that, and I hope after this video you can do the same. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.